Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's live event with OpsHub and Modern Requirements on modernizing your requirements practice. I'm your webinar host. Our speaker, Bob, will kick off today's event with an introduction to modern requirements. Our speaker, Aparna from OpsHub, will showcase how to easily migrate content from IBM doors with high fidelity to Azure DevOps. Then we will be passing it over to Asif, who will provide a demo of modern requirements, showing what you can accomplish with Azure DevOps and modern requirements for DevOps. Before we begin, just a few housekeeping items. We will send out the recording of our event afterward. If you're unable to stay for the full hour or just want to share it with your team, you'll have the recording in your inbox by the end of the week. It will also be available on our website, along with links to our other webinars and virtual event recordings. We allowed time at the end of this event for question and answer, so please type your questions in the Q&A window at any time. We will address these at the end. If we run out of time and we couldn't get to your question or additional questions might come up after the event, you can always send us an email at info@modernrequirements.com, and we will get you the answers as soon as possible. I will paste that email address in the chat window. We also have a few PDFs for you to download. You would just navigate to the handout section in front of you. We have a feedback survey that will pop up in your browser as soon as the webinar is complete. If you have a moment or two, please complete this survey, as it really helps us understand what topics are of interest and how we can improve our webinars moving forward. I see a lot of participants on the line who are not current customers of Modern Requirements. You can visit the link on the screen and know that I will paste this link in the chat box for you to get your 30-day trial of Modern Requirements at no cost or obligation. It's a great way to try it out and see how well it fits with your team. Throughout this webinar, you'll get a better sense of the many features and capabilities of Modern Requirements for DevOps and how OpsHub can help you migrate content from IBM doors to Azure DevOps. If we've piqued your interest, please visit the link and start your free trial right away. Without further delay, I would like to welcome Bob to kick off the event. Bob, all yours.
Thank you. And welcome, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here with you today to discuss modernization. I see some familiar names in the attendee list and some new names, so welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to present how to modernize your requirements practice. We're going to review the issues of using existing legacy requirements tools, the benefits of modernizing them, and present the tools used in this journey. At the end, as was said earlier, we'll stay and answer your questions as best we can, and we'll stay past the top of the hour if need be. So Modern Requirements has partnered with OpsHub for over a decade in successfully helping many of our mutual clients to modernize their process and move to Azure DevOps using Modern Requirements for DevOps and OpsHub Migration Manager. OpsHub provides both a high fidelity migration solution for moving content with history to a new platform, and a synchronization solution that helps you connect to dozens of common ALM tools with Azure DevOps. Today, we're going to highlight the migration from IBM doors to Azure DevOps. Requirements tools have been on the market since the 90s, early 90s. Doors was first released over 30 years ago and was deployed widely around the world as a standalone requirements tool. Over the past decade, as product development methodologies evolve, many new requirements tools have come to the market, offering powerful capabilities, modern architecture, enticing user interfaces, requirements visualization support, and most importantly, ALM integration. These new tools include modern requirements and fit seamlessly into our clients' current application lifecycle ecosystems, providing additional automation, functionality, and a central source of truth. We have many clients of legacy tools looking to move to Azure DevOps and have their valuable historical content come with them. These migrations are often stimulated by the factors shown on this chart. Having a modern user interface with a rich context menu and intuitive navigation obviously increases tool adoption, and that's something modern requirements certainly provides. Adding visuals like flowcharts, diagrams, and mock-ups to textual requirements adds context for all of the downstream requirements consumers like your dev teams and your test teams. Most of all, having all of the data that you develop and manage during your product development lifecycle in one place for real-time status reporting, end-to-end traceability, and powerful, timely collaboration really makes the modernization value very compelling. Our company, Modern Requirements, has been in the requirements tool business for over 2 decades now. Modern Requirements for DevOps, our current requirements tool, is our 3rd generation tool. And since it is an extension of Azure DevOps, the 2 platforms are much better together. They offer a rich requirements platform combined with an industry-leading DevOps platform that is used by millions globally. When we talk to our clients about their requirements practice, they share issues with us that are slowing down their existing practice. On this slide, I'm showing the top 10 that we hear from many of our current clients and current users of Doors. Our solution adds automation to address each of these issues comprehensively, and we'll show you how during the demonstration. We share the 3 objectives that are shown on this slide with our clients. And by adding automation to many places in your project lifecycle, we help to shorten your project cycle times. By adding collaboration online in the tool, we help to increase the flow of value. And by adding visuals and reusing your requirements, we help to reduce your development rework. We're showing here some real results from real clients who have proudly reported what they have achieved using our tool back to us. And these clients represent medical device companies, financial services companies, non-for-profit organizations, government entities, and manufacturers of engineered products. So all of these are real and attainable by modernizing your requirements practice. Modern Requirements is an extension of Azure DevOps, and all of the content that you create and manage in Modern Requirements is stored natively as work items in Azure DevOps or in the repo. The tool supports single sign-in, so once you activate a license, you simply sign in with your Azure DevOps credentials and you have access to all of Modern Requirements functionality. The tool inherits whichever process template you want to use for your project, whether it's an out-of-the-box Agile or a highly customized CMMI template. You can see and work with all of the work items that you've created in Azure DevOps. And also the tool supports the bidirectional integration with Excel and Microsoft Teams. OpsHub Migration Manager, OMM, as is shown on this slide, is a separate software product that Modern Requirements sells and supports. And it's used to migrate content from legacy systems in a high fidelity manner. So today we're focusing on IBM Doors. However, there are dozens of legacy systems that OMM can help you to migrate from. And it's simply a case of mapping the entities from one tool to the other. And Aparna will show you how as we move into the demonstration. Modern Requirements for DevOps offers many layers of functionality. And Smart Docs, in the authoring and reporting section here, was actually inspired by Doors. And it is an online document authoring module that simultaneously creates work items in Azure DevOps as you're creating them in a Word-like document online. And it really helps you to bridge the gap between a document-centric and a digitally managed approach to requirements. And all of the other capabilities shown on this chart can be deployed as needed by your project teams. Because Modern Requirements for DevOps is very broad and deep in its capabilities, it offers points of value to many different roles within your project lifecycle. And these are shown as to how test leads and architects can use our tool, as well as, of course, requirements engineers, using all of the historical content that you brought over from the many years of creating requirements in a legacy tool. So let's show you how that works, and I'm pleased to introduce our guest speaker, Aparna Garg, who will show you OpsHub Migration Manager and how it works. Aparna, over to you.
Thanks, Bob. Hi, everyone. So this whole exercise of modernization, as Bob described, it often sounds to me like relocating to a new home. First, you decide where to relocate and then strategize how to take all your stuff from one place to another. Just like relocating to a new home, with modernization also, you want to make sure that all the stuff reaches safely to modern requirements without having to leave anything behind. That is also the key challenge of modernization. That is how to preserve and relocate the knowledge of many years gathered in old tool or existing tool to the new tool, that is modern requirements. How to do this without impacting operations or customers or productivity or for that matter the whole portfolio. On top of all this, there is always the risk of unforeseen failures, putting whole modernization in jeopardy. Keeping all these challenges in mind, let's see what are some of the common modernization approaches or organizations are generally taking, depending on their size and the compliance requirements. The first approach is cap and grow. In cap and grow, organizations agree to leave the data behind in old tool and do a fresh start in new tool. For any future references, data from old tool is often backed up in database or files. Some organizations also retain old tool but cut down on user license to one or two. So that is cap and grow in nutshell. Second modernization approach is big bang migration approach, which is taking data from old tool to the new tool in one go and restricting the users from accessing the source system till the time migration is not over. So users can't use the existing tool at all till the time all data is not migrated to modern requirements. This is one approach of modernization. And post cutover, project teams start using new tool. While cap and grow and big bang are traditional approaches, modernization, as the name calls for it, it requires a modern approach to it, which is agile, incremental, and non-disruptive migration. It is also one of the last approaches that we are going to discuss. It is about migrating project by project in incremental manner, where teams continue to use the source system while the migration is going on. Traditional approaches have their own challenges. There are certain use cases where they may be a fit. For example, cap and grow may work for very small organizations with only few hundreds of work items, and where they don't have much compliance requirements as such to follow. And as old data is not taken to new tool, challenges for this approach would be loss of knowledge that is left behind in old tool, which in turn creates compliance and reporting risks due to unavailability of data, and which again in turn impacts team efficiency, because any old data that they want to refer is not easily accessible. They need to access a file or a database to get access to it. A big bang migration, which was the second approach that we discussed, it again may work for smaller organizations, but the organizations who have certain compliance needs. With big bang, as teams are cut out of systems till the time data is not completely migrated, it results in loss of productivity, operational losses, which are multiplied with every delay caused in modernization or migration due to unexpected situations, making big bang a very risky migration approach, where you will see impact keeps increasing with every single day added in the migration timeline, because that will mean one more day teams can't sign in into the systems. Challenges of traditional approaches themselves dictate that there is need of a better approach which ensures data completeness along with zero productivity or operational loss. Non-disruptive incremental migration is preferred by medium to large organizations where data range from thousands to millions of work items. With incremental migration approach, teams continue to use source tool while the migration is going on, and can plan switchover in phased manner once teams are ready. Incremental modernization approach is non-disruptive, but at the same time, it offers migration of complex data like comments, audits, history, files, links, inline content, etc. Because of being incremental in approach, it makes it possible to easily modernize your requirement tool even when there are thousands of projects and millions of work items to be migrated. OpsHub Integration Manager follows incremental approach towards modernization and has helped many customers migrate to MR without any disruption caused to teams and operations. We'll now begin with a live migration demo. In demo, we will be migrating requirements from IBM doors to modern requirements. Give me a minute. I will just switch over to the demo environment. Okay. So here we are. This is sorry. This is a modern requirements UI which is built on top of Azure DevOps. We'll be migrating all the requirements from IBM doors to demo project. Right now, there are no backlogs over here. The project is empty. And let's quickly go to doors and have a look on the data that we'll be migrating. So all the data is hosted in migration demo module, which has a set of couple of requirements. We have hierarchy of requirements over here. So there is parent, child, child of child. There is complex or formatted data, like there are files or attachments over here. There is an image. I will just open the requirements to go through the properties. So here for this requirement, we have assignee set to SEMA, status is resolved, priority is set to 1. Similarly, if we go to history, we'll be migrating all the history, every event that took place on all the requirements as is. So when this requirement is migrated to MR, modern requirements, every event that took place, for example, let me take this status change. The status was changed from none to active, and then active to resolve on 29th of March. We'll be seeing exact same history in modern requirements. And similarly, there are other requirements. So there is this another requirement which has a table and formatted data in it, which also has a similar history and the attribute set. With that, let me trigger the migration. So here we have already pre-configured the migration. I'll just activate it. Now it will take just a minute to bring all the requirements to modern requirements.
So while we're waiting for the migrated content to arrive, we have a few questions that we'd like to ask the audience. And let me launch the first polling question that we'd appreciate your response on. So the first question is, what do you use for requirements today? How many of you use doors and others? We're seeing about 40% of the audience are still using Office. 15 or so percent are using doors, and a quarter of the audience is using modern requirements. So thank you for that. Let me launch the next question. What does your company use for development and operations today? And as the answers are coming in. It appears like almost 3/4 of you are using Azure DevOps. I'll give you another 5 seconds. Thank you. So about 73% use Azure DevOps and 6% use nothing, which is kind of interesting. And then the last question, would just like to get a sense of if you're considering a modernization project within your organization, and is it this year or next year? We have about 30% of the audience looking to modernize within the next 6 months, and 11% within a year, with about 33% not sure. So again, thank you for your answers to these questions. They help us understand the audience a lot better. So let me close this and turn it back over to Aparna to continue her demonstration.
Thanks, John. I will refresh the screen over here, browser over here. So we have most of the requirements already. And if we look at the hierarchy, it is as it is like we saw in doors. So for users, the whole migration would be running in background. For them, the users who are using doors, there won't be any impact on them as such. Let's bring up, I will bring up this requirement over here to look at the data. So here the title is there, the assignee, which was SEMA in the other tool, that is set. The description is as it was given in doors. And if we look at history, the whole status transition that took place in doors, from new to active to resolved, and the users who did it, the date on which this was done, it is replicated as it is. So for users, it would be just like transitioning from the existing legacy requirements tool to modern requirements with the same data, but with modern functionalities, with modern features that they can start using and leveraging in their day-to-day life. So here for this one, we have child of child. Let me refresh it once again. So we have all the requirements over here. I'll just open this one too. So in this requirement, we have attachments, or what we call as OLE objects in doors. There are two attachments attached over here. One is a docs file, Word file, and other is a simple text file. So if we bring it up, the content would be similar to what was there in doors. So it has retained all the formatting, all the content. So as I said, like the data is completely as it is. The view that user had in doors, there is no data loss at all. Just the tool has been upgraded. For just for utility perspective, if any user wants to see what is a doors requirement ID, that is also available in a field. And any comments or any discussions that are added in doors, that is available again with the same user. who added that comment, and at the same time. That was the time at which the comment was added in IBM doors. So this is the migration flow. Now, let's say while migration was going on, our team did some changes in doors. So we will pretend we are the doors team, and we'll edit one of the requirement. So I'm picking this one, creating a SaaS application. I'll edit the description. So I've added in the description and cloud computing. And I'll edit one of the property. So let's say, meanwhile, migration was going on, team completed the work on this requirement, and they have marked it resolved. We'll save it and close the module. Meanwhile, that change is coming to ADO. Let's say some of the team has started using ADO already, and they make a change from modern requirements over here, and they're updating description. I'm just adding a short text over here and search. We'll save and close it. So what we are showing right now here is modernization just doesn't end, is not just one step process that is bringing the data one time from doors or any other tool to modern requirements. As the team would also be using the tools while the migration is going on, the changes need to be migrated to the modern requirements as well. So the status is resolved in modern requirements too, and in description we added and cloud computing, that is updated. Now, one thing to notice is while we are doing this demo, while we are using modern requirements and doors, OpsHub is nowhere in the picture. And this is what the experience would be for the end users, for the users of modern requirements and users of doors. Let's go to doors and check out if the changes are available in doors as well. So in modern requirements, we updated application updates to adopt elastic caching, and we added and search over here. So this is available in doors too. So this completes the demo. I'll move back to the presentation. In the demo, we saw the initial data migration from doors to modern requirements. And while migration, any changes that were done in doors, those changes we saw how they were brought to modern requirements. And if any team has started using modern requirements, then those changes also we saw they got replicated back to doors. Moving to key takeaways. So modern requirements plus OpsHub, they make modernization easy by providing a non-disruptive modernization approach with high data fidelity and preservation of systematic knowledge. No data is left behind, as we just saw in the demo. All the data, including the history, attachments, comments, hierarchy, all the data was available in modern requirements as is, which results in no compliance risk and at the same time no productivity loss, because those users can continue to use the tool while migration is going on. And so this is how we empower software innovation teams to excel. From here, I will pass on the control to Asif Sharif, who will give a quick demo of modern requirements.
All right, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. You should be seeing my query view. So this is the data that was imported or migrated from doors, right? So now the data is in here. Now you can start to use everything model requirements. So if you wanted to generate a report on all of these work items, you simply go to Smart Report and you can say generate a report. I'll go and generate a document with the content based on the template you've created. You can use a variety of different templates, either if they're out of the box or they are defined by yourselves in the report designer. The reports ultimately can be exported to Word or PDF along with your templates as you need it. Now, of course, once you have the data in Azure DevOps, you can then do other things. Like, for example, if I wanted to create a baseline, I could simply go here and create a new baseline. Or I could initiate a request to get feedback and sign off, including e-signature and so on. But let's go to a Smart Doc. So I'll go to Smart Docs, and in Smart Docs, what I'm going to do is I will inject. So I've got a sort of an outline of a document here. But what I'll do is I will insert the work items we just got from doors into Azure DevOps, and I'll pull those in into our document. Okay. So now that that information has been pulled into the document, you will see all of this information that actually was migrated over. And now you can start to work on Smart Docs. And of course, as you're working on Smart Docs, you can create your Smart Doc templates. You can save Smart Docs to Word and PDF formats. You can insert diagrams with our diagramming tool into the Smart Doc. You can even create work items at the shape level directly into here, and I could just say I want to create a user story and create a new user story based on that shape. And so I'm really using my diagram as a trampoline in order to define my requirements. I can even go into my analysis tab, have the system detect various scenarios and publish those as user stories or whatever work item I so choose. So you end up getting the link to the work items in the scenario, a visual and a default text of the flow. So this way you can go very quickly identify all the scenarios, document them. You can generate either use case or scenarios or both. You can also generate test cases. So you go here, you name the test case to be whatever you like so, and then we can go ahead and publish a test case. And you get all the test steps, the requirements that are covered by it, and the summary. You will see a visual that shows you the thinking behind this test case. So really what you're doing in this scenario is you're creating your diagram, you're using the diagram to identify your requirements or your risk or hazards, whatever it may be, and then using the analysis tool to detect the test cases, the scenarios, and the use cases. So instead of using multiple tools with multiple hands being put into the pot Now you can have a much more streamlined process to identify all of this, which is not only more efficient, it is more accurate. So build a good diagram and really leverage that knowledge. Now with Smart Docs, you can also version it. So you can create multiple versions of a document. I had created one version of this before. Let's open that up. This is the original version. Now I can compare it to the current version and see what changed. You can see a redlining of exactly what changed. And of course, we added all of these other new work items from doors into a Smart Doc. So they're all red. And then you can save the redline version to Word or PDF with the redlining in it. You can also initiate a review on the Smart Doc. And let's say my product spec 101 review. You give some instructions here. You invite reviewers and approvers. Your approvers can approve and reject, whereas reviewers can only provide feedback. You can choose a due date. You can approve the document as a whole if you like. So all or nothing scenario. You can also request e-signature, which is Part 11 compliant for FDA and other industries and standards. So this provides e-signature support. You can also do state transition of the work items that are being approved. And then you basically send out an email and the user will click on this link to initiate the review. So I'll send this, an email will be sent out. When you click on that hyperlink, it will bring you to this view. So in this view, you can go ahead and you can approve things, or you can reject things, or provide comments as an approver, or you can even go in a compare view and say, hey, what changed since last time? So I can just look at the changes as opposed to review everything. And then you could say, I need to make some change here. And you might reject that. Or in some cases, you might just go and add a comment, and so on and so forth. Now, one thing to remember is that when you're doing review management, the approval, the comments you're providing are visible to other participants of that review. So it's really like a team sport. You want to work together, you can collaborate together, but of course, it's only you that can approve for yourself, and others can see what you're doing and give you feedback. You can then look at the progress that's being made, in this case by me. You can change the due dates, you can update the review. So in the event that somebody is gone on vacation, you can replace them with someone else. You can cancel the review, close the review. You can send a reminder. The reminder can and is also automated. Now, of course, as we are working on creating information, or once we import the information, you may want to see how things come together. And one way to look at that is to view the trace analysis view. So this is the horizontal matrix. Now, the data that was imported was basically user story as a hierarchy. So the doors module was mapped to every object in it was mapped to a user story. So you want to see how a user story is linked to various other user story with or whatever link type. So this is showing up this way. If you just wanted user story with a child relationship, then you could come here and then you can say, hey, I'm only interested in a certain link type. And then this will only show you the parent-child hierarchy. But this can be up to 10 levels deep, where you can not only choose work item types at every level, link types to be considered one or many between the two levels of work item or up to 10, and what properties you want to include in the trace matrix. Or you can use a more advanced version for cross-project, excuse me, for cross-project traceability. The other type of trace matrix you can produce now that we have the data migrated is intersection matrix. So this is showing how my user stories are linked to other user stories, and where the links are, you can again go into this view and you can specify what are the two dimensions and what are the link types, if that's only the link type you're interested in. You can choose that, or you can use the more advanced version of this thing again for cross-project traceability, or do a much more fine-tuned selection of what shows up in the trace matrix. And then we can rerun this, and then now this is only showing you parent-child relationships between the user stories, and the arrows specify that. So it's very easy to create your trace matrix. You can always export this to Excel or rerun them as you please. Now, as we get the data in, and let's say I've created a query to look at all the user stories we imported from Doors into Azure DevOps. I'm just going to select all of them, and I'm going to create a baseline. So let's just call this release 1 baseline. And I'll go create it. So we'll go and create a new baseline, take a snapshot of the work items that I selected, and a new baseline is created. Now, a baseline is similar to a version of a smart doc. A version of a smart doc, the scope of that simply is the content of the smart doc. But a baseline can contain work items that are in multiple smart docs, or even work items that are not in smart docs. So you can create a baseline, you can generate a report from it, and see the output of how things were at a point in time. As time goes by, things might change. And so let's make a couple of quick change here. Things may change, and now you can go compare, and you can compare the baseline version to the current version here, and you can see what changed. So the first one actually did change, and for the first one, I can further drill down to see exactly what changed. Or I can generate a difference report and see the delta between, say, 2 releases, and that becomes the raw material for your release notes. And you can also compare a baseline to other baselines or to other queries, if you like. And then what you can also do is you can actually reuse content from various projects or various libraries and pull the content into your current project. So you can point to any project or point to the library project and reuse information into your current project, and then do a compare later on to see how things have changed over time. The last thing I want to show you is FAQ. So as you're working on your project, you might say, I actually want to do requirements on different topics. So maybe I want to do requirements on data security or data compliance as a topic under GDPR. Or you want to do system lifecycle requirements or quality management or risk management. Or you want to do something with ASPICE. Or you want to do operational requirements and so on. We have cataloged multiple topics with over 3,500 questions. So if I go access security FAQ, you will see we have 155 questions that are provided out of the box. You can now go ahead and you can answer one of the questions, and answering the question creates your requirement. You can choose what type of work item you want to create, but you ultimately create requirements or work items based on the questions you're asking. So it's an elicitation tool that many of our clients find it very helpful. But one of the things you can also do is you can create a blank topic, so with no questions in it, and then you can add your own questions to it and save it as a template. And so in this way, other people can build on your knowledge tomorrow. So folks, that's a quick overview of modern requirements. But of course, as you're working on modernization, not only do you want a powerful modern application that you want to use, but you also want to bring your legacy data from your legacy systems into Azure DevOps and modern requirements. And so in our partnership with OpsHub, we provide the full offering for modernization. So that's my piece, and I think I'll pass it on to Bob for Q&A.
Thanks, Asif. And we have some great questions from our attendees. So let's start. First question from Carrie is, do you need to keep the original migrated documents or can they be deleted? And that's a question of risk tolerance at the end. Once all of the content is migrated, the content is in Azure DevOps. The smart docs have been created to mimic what you have had indoors. So really, in my opinion, there is no need to keep those once you've validated that all the content has come over correctly. But I'll ask Aparna to add her opinion on that question as well.
That's absolutely correct, Bob. Once the data is migrated to modern requirements, there is no need to retain the same data in the old tool.
Okay, thank you. So next question is from Lilac, and she's asking, the hierarchy from doors can be synced to any work item that I want. I expect for epic, feature, and requirement. And the answer is, short answer is yes. The mapping is completely configurable. So prior to the migration, you need to look at the source work items that are indoors and how you want to organize your project in Azure DevOps. And you can create customized mapping accordingly. Again, Aparna, would you like to add something to that?
Yeah, so once again, Bob, that requirement migration was just an example in the demo, but OpsHub can migrate all other types of work items like feature, epic, defects, and other planning entities, iteration, sprint, in the same hierarchy as it is there indoors. So if indoors you have specified type of requirement in a drop-down field, then that can be used, or any other property can be used to map it to different types of work items in modern requirements.
Great, thank you. So then Lilac asks, can I synchronize the link to the model in Rhapsody? And my understanding is you have a hot link in the description of the module indoors, and that link can be migrated using OMM to Azure DevOps. Is that correct, Aparna?
So the link can be there in the description, or if customer is using the whole IBM engineering suite, which has Rhapsody, doors, and other tools. In that case, doors may be pointing to the actual Rhapsody item. That can be done using our professional services. That is something can be completed using the professional services engagement.
Okay, thank you. So Bob is asking a question similar to the hierarchy. Shouldn't doors requirements be mapped to requirements work items, not user stories? Does OpsHub support mapping work item types to our choice from doors? And I think the answer was yes.
Yes, so just we migrated it to user story because the template type was agile, but if we take CMMI or any other template type which has requirement, then the doors requirement can be mapped to requirement work item type. So that's just a simple configuration. It allows you to map or pick the work item in modern requirements to which you want to migrate the requirements. So it can be requirements, it can be a feature for that matter. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, Doors has the ability to have many-to-many link types. DevOps is limited to a single parent. How can many-to-many links be created?
So many-to-many links, DevOps has parent-child, and it has many other types of links like related, blocked, affected by, and so on. And Doors has outlink and external link or internal link. Those can be taken as relates to link in Azure DevOps.
Okay,
so
thank you.
Possible, yeah.
So Andy asks, what does the migration from Office Excel-based requirements look like? So that would be done via the Excel free plugin. If you have your requirements in Excel, Azure DevOps provides bidirectional Excel integration. If you have your requirements in simply Office documents or Word documents, Modern Requirements does provide a word import capability. If your requirements documents are structured, you can import them into Azure DevOps. The same way with Visio diagrams, we provide a tool to import Visio models into Azure DevOps called Smart Visio for DevOps. So those are the three types of content that you could bring in to help you utilize the power of Azure DevOps.
Yeah, and actually we also support RecIF. So if you have RecIF data, you can import that as well.
Thanks, Asif. Here's a good question for you. Yana asks, how does Modern Requirements help or solve the issue with overlapping duplicate requirements?
Overlapping duplicate requirements. Yeah, that's a tough one because I think even visually looking at things, it's hard to tell if it's duplicate because that really it requires human understanding to be able to tell if two, unless it's the exact text, but I suppose that's never the case. So in that case, it's really a manual activity to understand are two statements saying the same thing. So other than some rudimentary automation, this really is, unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we still have something to do, would be a manual function.
Thank you. And I guess you could use queries and say, show me all the features that include the word catheter. And you can visually see them, and that kind of helps a little bit, but doesn't address the issue completely. Next question, Andy asks, can you trace from user stories to artifacts generated by devs and solution architects, IT deliverables and solution proposals? Asif, do you want to tackle that question?
Sorry, Bob, I didn't understand that. Say that again.
So can you trace from user stories to artifacts generated by devs and solution architects, like IT deliverables?
Right. So yes, you can. So there's two ways to do it. One is you have your artifact externally, and you just point to it. You have the user story reference it, like with the hyperlink. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is what many of our clients now are doing. They will actually use smart docs to create those artifacts. So you'll create an architecture template, and people will use the architecture template directly in smart docs to create that artifact. And then you can link to that artifact either at the macro level, at the whole document level, or at a specific content within the smart doc. So if you do it in smart doc, you've got much more granular linking possible. But if you do it externally, then you're referencing the external artifact.
Okay, thank you. So those are the end of the questions that are posted. I'll let you think for a moment if there are any final questions, and I'll ask one that was previously submitted. Does the modernization tool also support migrating multiple projects to a single project in modern requirements? If yes, then the post-migration can bidirectional integration be kept for such a project?
So the answer is yes. In demo, we showed migration from one doors project to one modern requirements project, but OpsHub can merge multiple modules or projects of doors into a single project in modern requirements, or it can like divide a single project in doors into multiple projects in modern requirements while migration. Post-migration, users can also integrate or migrate any pending changes between the tools for both the models, just like we showed in the demo.
Thanks, Aparna. So we've passed the top of the hour, and I just quickly like to thank everyone for participating. We've shown you the power of modern requirements with its fresh user interface and all of the new capabilities for requirements management. We've shown you how the high fidelity migration is possible from a legacy tool like Doors via OpsHub Migration Manager. And hopefully you can see how the overall value in modernizing your process can turn your teams into very nimble and collaborative teams in your requirements practice. You don't have any silos in the modernized requirements environment, and you have a single source of truth. And I'll leave you with an analogy. It's taking a trip on an airplane after you've carefully packed your bags, and then arriving without those bags makes for a very unpleasant trip. OpsHub, like the airlines, takes great care into making sure that all of the content that you've meticulously created over the years comes across to your new environment with all of the links and all of the diagrams that you've created, making your requirements trip much more pleasant and seamless. So again, thank you for your participation. I wish you all a brilliant afternoon or evening, and look forward to speaking with you soon.